Hi, everybody. Who's excited for the last session of the day? Yeah? What? Not because it's last, because it's going to be the best, most exciting session you've had in the last 3 days, or at least I hope so. We have a great panel ready to talk. We have some channels up here. I know, before I get to introductions, I know everybody is excited for the last disclaimer that you are going to hear today. And to help us, I have phoned my friend at ATPico, David Smith, who, if you've never heard him give the disclaimer, you are in for a real treat. So David, could you please help us out?
Thank you. Isn't that great? Thank you for that introduction. I did get applause for the first one, so no expectation.
Pre-applause.
Wait till I've read it first. So I'm David. Very important context, obviously, these meetings that we have and discussing solutions. So thank you for your attention, and then I will give you back to our marvelous panel at the front. So the purpose of this meeting is to discuss the coding, processing, and standardization of airfare-related data by the airline industry. To make the distribution and interpretation of airfare-related data more accurate, automated, and efficient, participants must conduct themselves in a manner consistent with this meeting's industry-wide pro-competitive mission. Because some, if not all, participants represent companies that compete with one another, we must not engage in conduct that could be perceived as a violation of the antitrust laws or the competition laws around the world. Accordingly, this meeting will not discuss or take action regarding a fare or fee, nor will it discuss or take action on remuneration levels of any intermediaries engaged in the sale of passenger air transportation. This meeting also has no authority to discuss or reach agreement on the allocation of markets, the division or sharing traffic or revenues, or the number of flights or capacity to be offered in any market. Discussions regarding such matters or concerning any other competitively sensitive topics, either on the floor or off, are strictly prohibited. Discussing or reaching agreement related to these topics could expose meeting participants to liability under the US antitrust laws or under competition laws of other jurisdictions around the world. Further, so the content of this meeting is not misinterpreted, ATPico requests that participants refrain from any communications concerning that content over social media or other public platforms. Thank you for your attention, and back to Lisa and our panel. Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right, so we have some lovely folks up on stage here today. It's been really nice getting to know them for a few minutes. So I'm Lisa Koss. I'm a senior product manager for ATPico over the Route Happy portfolio, and excited to welcome Regia from Spotnana. We have Hugh from Skyscanner, Justin from TAP, and we have Derek from Delta. So I've asked them to give a little introduction as to what they do because I did not memorize their bios. So we're going to have everyone introduce themselves. Regia?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hugh. Okay, yeah. My name is Mriga Agarwal, and I am head of NDC integrations at Spotnana. So what I do basically is I spearhead NDC initiatives at Spotnana, making sure all the content is seamlessly integrated into our online tool, but also making sure that we have the best technology so that we can onboard as many airlines as possible, as quickly as possible. So I'm on the implementation side, having direct connections with all the airlines, and looking forward to the panel.
Thanks, Regia. You?
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks. It's great to be here and a really good couple of days. So I'm Hugh from Skyscanner. I head up our global partnership and industry engagement. Just to give you a sense, Skyscanner, we're the biggest travel search site globally, about 120 million UMVs, over 100 million app downloads, and 100 million registered users. We've got a couple of much smaller regional niche competitors. I'm looking at them right now just to wind them up. But yeah, we operate in the meta space alongside a few others globally.
Hello, good afternoon. So my name is Justin. I'm working for TAP Air Portugal, and I am responsible of the distribution and the strategy. So everything related to distribution, GDS, NDC, content distribution as well, and all the leisure sales, corporate sales, and the strategy.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Derek Hawkins with Delta Airlines, manager for our distribution strategy and technology team. Primarily focused on our selling and servicing transformation, working on offer, payment, and settlement, and proud to say part of our NDC team. Also, part of my duties with Delta is from our third-party merchandising and managing the relationship with Route Happy.
Mm-hmm. Great. Welcome. We're excited. So the most of our session, if not all of it, we're just going to be talking through some questions, and then we'll wrap for the day. So we have a few slides to just set the stage of what we're talking about. So we're talking about offer transparency and how Route Happy data can help bring that transparency to flight shoppers. Does anybody know how many offers exist out in the world at any given moment, approximately? Tom, you're not allowed to answer. Does anybody know? 1 billion. So you can imagine that all of this variety for flight shoppers is confusing. And I don't know if anybody plays the role in their family or for your friends of trying to explain what industry terms mean or trying to decipher some of the offers and how to shop for flights. I get it a lot. Code share, what is code share? It seems so obvious to all of us. Code share, marketing carrier, operating carrier. Anybody in your family probably has no idea and they don't understand why one carrier maybe is marketing and operating, can be confusing. So when you get into change fees, refundability, when you talk about power, Wi-Fi, what seat pitch, you get into a lot of things that confuse flight shoppers. And so really the power of Route Happy is to bring that transparency down to the flight shopper so that they can see what they're interested in at the moment that they're flight shopping to meet those needs and marry the two together. So really, we're gonna focus on a variety of questions today, but the frustrations that flight shoppers have, the complexities, the hidden fees, trying to make it more transparent through the offers. Probably heard a lot about this last couple of days, so. And merchandising, just the merchandising when we started kind of the Route Happy journey, going back to, I was thinking when I saw Bob Albert at one of the Elevates in 2018, 2019, talking about Amazon, looking at Amazon when you're shopping for toothpicks. There were videos about toothpicks, where the toothpicks were made and manufactured, people using toothpicks. I mean, for toothpicks on Amazon, you have all of this merchandising, and then the shopping for flights was primarily nonstop, price-driven, and you didn't have the rich content to go with it. So merchandising can help sell the offers, getting the right offer to the right person with the visuals, with the information that they need to see at the time of shopping. So let's jump into some of the questions, shall we? Okay, so the first one, I think, Regia, you're gonna maybe go first for us. Okay. What channels or platforms do you use to communicate to customers, and how do you ensure that important info is easily accessible and not buried down where they can't find it?
So at Spotnana, we believe in trust and transparency, and we have a lot of ways of doing that. So for example, during the shopping process, we make sure that all the fare rules are easily shown to the traveler. So every fare rule we display to the traveler so they can make informed decision. Not only just fare rules, so we also show if you could use unused credits, for example, for a particular brand, for a particular fare. So that is all shown during the shopping experience. And then we go a step further. We also use AI tools in ChatGPT to actually parse raw fare rules, the more complex ones, for example, policies of no-shows or change on the same day. All this information is already communicated to the traveler, and it's communicated via email. It's also shown on their trips page, and it's also visible on their online, and the Spotnana mobile app. So we make sure that this information is easily accessible. That helps us not only just building trust with our customers, but also we make sure that the traveler is not contacting customer service all the time, because it's all there, it's available to them. So it saves a lot of time and money for the traveler as well.
Thanks for sharing. And Justin, I think you're going to tell us a little bit more about how do you ensure that information is front and center.
So we can define two big parts: the direct distribution and the indirect distribution. So for the direct distribution, it's easier, let's say, because we control at close to 100% what we want to distribute in terms of image, content, brands as well. So this is not the biggest challenge we have. But then when we talk about indirect distribution for the thousands and thousands of agencies that are consuming our content, that is much more challenging, because at the end, the airline is responsible to build the content, to distribute some image, but you always have some intermediaries like technology supplier, like a GDS, for instance, or aggregator. And if it's about corporate, you will have an OBT, and then you have the agencies, and you have all those steps. And at the end, you can provide the best image and contextualization. If the agency has done nothing on the UI, it will not reach the final customer. So what we are doing, what we try to do at least, is to have a whole dedicated team responsible of this relationship between all those actors. And also we are also working with Atypico. RouteHappy is helping for that, but there is still a gap between the access of the information that the airline is distributing. So yeah, that's, I mean, I guess that the next step is to close this gap as much as we can.
Okay, thank you. Next up, what are some significant challenges that customers commonly face when booking, and how can airlines address to improve that overall experience? So I think, Derek, you were gonna take a stab at answering that one first.
Thank you, Lisa. One of the big challenges that customers have is, I think you mentioned this, is around code shares. You have to think, for us, is always how can we create value for our customers? And when you're creating value, the customer's journey doesn't start when the flight takes off or when they get to the airport. It starts at that initial shop. So you want to make sure that you're building trust by creating the right offer transparency from that initial shop. We in the industry may know what a code share flight is, but customers don't know what a code share flight is. When they're purchasing their ticket, they think, okay, I bought a ticket with Delta. I don't know I have to check in with Air France or check in with KLM or check in with Air Portugal. So a part of that is how do you create the right offer transparency for a code share flight? When we've seen working with RouteHappy, being able to have those shared UPAs, those code share UPAs, where we can let our customers know you're going to have this particular travel experience, even though you've purchased your flight with Delta. You can check in with Air France. You're going to have your lounge experience. You're going to get your benefits as a part of that shared benefits that we have. So it's always about making sure that the customers know what they're going to get at the airport, what they're going to get when they're on the flight, and just having that full travel experience.
I don't know if anybody's seen the code share UPAs out in practice. Hopefully some of you have. The content team spent a lot of time years ago researching how to communicate code share. So there's often an overview UPA that has the two tail images that showcase what it is. So it helps set the stage for the following UPAs. So if it's Delta and Virgin, for example, it would show the tail images. It would say a little bit about Delta, and then it would have the onboard experience for the operating carrier. So try and find one out in the market, if you dare. Hugh, did you have any perspective on that you wanted to share with us? Just a little bit about any challenges that you've heard?
I think there's probably a couple of ways to think about it. First of all, I'd probably broaden it to think about where does Meta sit in the whole chain. So when we look at Meta, we sit much further up the funnel than the airline side. So generally people will come to us first, and then, our job is come to us first, and then they redirect off to TAP or to Delta, and we work with both of you guys in that capacity. So people are much further up the funnel. So 60% of Skyscanner users don't know where they want to go and or when they want to go somewhere. So they're very much in that discovery phase. So if you imagine when you're trying to discover travel, you don't want to be overwhelmed by choice. You want to keep it really simple. More often than not, well over 60%, close to 3/4 of our travelers come to us on MWeb, particularly for that first search. So they start off on MWeb. They gravitate towards app or desktop. But the challenge with MWeb, because it's a small screen, is fitting in lots of data. So one of the real challenges we work with our airlines on is how do we get the right data in front of the travelers given their state of planning? So let's not overwhelm them with choice. Give them the data that's relevant to where they are in their travel search experience, and also give them that data in a way that's consumable on the device they're using. So, rich content, big images, etc. on mobile can be hard to navigate and scroll through. So it's presenting it and designing it in a way that's easily consumable for travelers. So those are the two things, get the right content at the right time and the relevant content. I think what we do see is travelers more and more are wanting richer content and wanting more data to help them plan. So the experience of travel is as important as the experience of travel is as important as price. So we don't order on price anymore, Skyscanner. We order on value. So that's a combination of price and duration, a couple of other factors. So again, it's making sure that we're showing them what value they get in that with that choice of provider. So again, right choice, right data, right place, and giving them that relevant data that they need. Yeah.
Very important.
The challenge for us is, you think about, so for every call, so we're doing about 1 billion price searches a day. So getting all of that data, where all of our providers are probably, airlines fine, does this fare include a bag or not, will be fine. But then, my God, when you're combining that with other providers of that who might not, might be slightly different fare, we have made travel choice and travel configuration incredibly complex as an industry, and we've obfuscated it in lots of ways. So actually trying to make that simple so travelers can compare apples with apples, and that's a huge data challenge that we have as Meta, and cleaning that data so we're providing it like for the traveler.
Very important.
Just to build on
Please.
that, I think, and we saw this during the conference, there is a lot of things. Our airlines want to have more revenue, right? We want to have our RASK increasing, our profitability increasing. And what do we do for that? We have a revenue management team or offer management team, whatever, and we try to build products as profitable as we can. So we talk about dynamic offer, dynamic pricing. We talk about pack of services, etc. But how do we sell that to the customer? And it's very complicated. You have a team building their product on their side. They don't always put themselves in the shoes of the customer. They don't ask the question, does it make sense from a UI point of view? Is this channel going to display my offer? You will have a bag only if you buy a seat. Some airlines are doing that. It's not random example. And that's very complex, and that's a challenge for us as well. In Air Portugal, we have started with dynamic pricing, with dynamic offer. We are starting with pack of services, and there is a question: how do we do that on our website? And it's very complex, and the customer is already lost. Even without that, you have some airlines, 3 brands, some 4 brands. You have a cabin bag, you don't have a cabin bag, or you have a cabin bag, but you can have only 70 for safety reasons. So your cabin bag will be on hold. So it's very complex. And I don't see that with the upcoming technology, it's going to be less complex.
It's getting more and more complex. More flexibility means it's harder to represent the data in a structured way that you can compare shop. I think Route Happy is great at being able to give up the bits and the bytes so that you can use them in your displays how you want. But as soon as you get into indirect, right? I think direct, when you have one airline, one product, or the product offering, it's a little bit easier. Indirect gets infinitely harder to do. And so we're always interested in the feedback from the channels. One thing we often hear is really that wide coverage and consistency, right? Because you have to serve it up for so many different airlines.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, I think we're going back to Hugh with what strategies can airlines and channels implement to simplify the complexity of that comparison shop? And I think you touched on it a little bit of some of the challenges, but is there anything else you want to?
Yeah, I think it is. It's just, get the right data in front of the right traveler at the right time. I think there's also a theme about giving that data that's on the way for the traveler rather than in the way for the traveler. So anything travel planning is complex. If you look at the time that people, if you're planning a trip and it's going to be a lot longer, you'll plan your trips in the future, but it's a long period and people are checking multiple sites and over a period of time. So how can we give them the right data at the right time? So our big mantra as Meta is make sure we've got the best content, the best prices, and we get those results fast. So one of the things we talk to airlines is all about, we talk to you guys, price accuracy, price coverage, and speed. Speed is really hard when you're providing more and more data from them and trying to, so effectively we do cut off the time when we're calling partner sites before they get results back to us. So that's the first thing. So help us with speed, accuracy, and coverage, and get that data to us really simply. I think the next thing is as travelers want more, our most requested feature in Skyscanner is, does this fare include a bag? So we're rolling that out across markets. It's live in US, Mexico, Canada, for example, at the moment. So providing that really simple data, this fare includes 1 bag or 0 bags or whatever it is, and what the fee of that bag is. And then that starts to gravitate to other things. So again, it's just at the relevant time, because what we found is that travelers come and search on us, and then they leave us and go to the airline or to others, the OTA directly to check if it. So we see nearly a 50% increase in redirects where we provide that Route Happy amenity data. So it just shows the value of providing that richer data experience for travelers.
That's great to hear.
Just to add a little bit on that, one thing you mentioned, direct and the indirect, it's key to have that consistency across channels, because if they're going to your direct site, they want to see the same thing that I'm seeing on my indirect site as well. So if you're showing seats, bag, flexibility on your direct site, it's really critical to have that on that, so you have that consistency across channels, so you could actually have that comparison site from site to site to site.
Derek, do you get, I mean, not that you know every call coming into the Delta call center, but do you get a lot of calls of, we've seen this on one site, we've seen this on another site, where passengers are confused? Does that get raised up?
Oh yeah, they're very confused, because it especially if there are some price differences. That would be the major thing.
The main
Okay,
one.
I'm shopping with my travel agents, my TMC, or I'm on my online booking tool. They say, I see this price here, but then I go to Delta and I see a different flight, or I see that you have Comfort Plus available on this particular flight, on this particular site, but it's not on my other booking tool. So having that there, it just, it takes away that customer trust, because if I can't trust your own site or my travel agency site, why would I trust you for the my rest of my travel experience? So consistency is really key for us, making sure that whatever we have on our Delta.com, we have in our online booking tools, our agency sites as well.
Yeah, consistency and building that trust and getting the information to the flight shopper at the right time.
Yeah, the other thing we get a lot of building in that is accuracy of data. So what we get most feedback from is, I saw this price in Skyscanner, but that price, not mercifully Delta TAP, but at that price. Now, there's lots of reasons for that. And you say to a traveler, it's because we cached that data 4 hours ago and it's been fresh. And you lose them when you start mentioning any of that. But that's where, but the opposite of us, we hit our partner sites 10 times more than we do. And then the partner APIs, challenges there. So it's that whole chain of challenges that we face.
Yeah, it all adds up. Time, milliseconds. You're counting in milliseconds when you're in the shopping.
Exactly.
All right, so I think we're going to move to Rikia here for a minute. How can airlines and channels leverage feedback to continually improve the services and address different pain points that you all see over at Spotnana?
So again, here at Spotnana, we are actually NDC first, data first, and AI first. What that means is that basically through NDC, because of NDC, actually airlines can get real-time feedback about who the customer is, who the traveler is. And based on that, they can actually send us, they can change through dynamic pricing, they can change their bundles, and they can actually send more personalized offers to the traveler. So I think with NDC, that's really good to get the real-time feedback, what airlines can use. And we actually want to partner with airlines to also build such a tool where they can use our AI technologies to actually get this indirect feedback directly from the customer. That's something that we have already, that we are built upon, and we would love to really partner with all the airlines for such a tool. The other thing what we have for customer feedback is we have this enhanced feature where the traveler can we have a button they can click and be like, hey, you are showing us higher fare than some other alternative platforms. So it could be on the airline website or other OBTs. So we also get all that data already that, our platform is probably not providing the best fares for whatever reason. And then our engineering team gets right on spot. We analyze it. We create models. What could be the reason why our fares not optimal? And then, that's how we then enhance our platform. So
a lot of data insights in there. I want to talk to you more about that. That's great. All right, so there's some industry best practices for airlines. So Justin, I think maybe you could tell us a little bit more, what are you doing to be more transparent to your customers, probably involving Route Happy a little bit, but how are you all doing at TAP?
Yeah, we want to bring more transparency, but also more consistency, more accuracy. One of the initiatives we are doing is to include a bit more visual in our offer distribution. So why visual? Because I think it was end of last year, beginning of this year, I read a survey, 75% of people wants to have, when shopping online for travel, wants to have a visual. That's not too much a surprise, but I think that's the trend that's continued to grow. And indeed, when you have a revenue strategy where you want to increase your ancillary revenue, when you want to increase so the bag, the seat, the fast track, the premium boarding, whatever it is, then you need to sell it. And to sell it, an image is always better than just put it in the text when you click on the view more, collapse, and you need to read everything. So what we are doing is we are actually using Route Happy for that. And the first results are great. Because you, as an image, let's say, take an example of a seat, you want to project yourself in these seats. You want to see what you are going to buy. Because today, me personally, I will have difficulty to buy something I am not sure what it is. Because if you take how airlines are pricing their seats today, it's quite expensive. Not enough, but still starting to be a bit quite expensive. For the long haul, you can go to $100. From Europe to the US, especially if it's night flight. So if it's 20% of your flight ticket, you are going to think about that. Should I buy? Should I not buy? If you display the beautiful seat with all the characteristics and you succeed to share the selling point of this seat, then you will increase your adoption rate. So image is a good way for that. So, yeah.
How do you do that in your non-premium cabins? Because I guess that really works well in business and first type products.
Yeah.
That rich experience, but economy cabin is an economy cabin,
no.
Or do you still see it for the economy travelers search it as much for that onboard experience and just understanding visually what it looks like?
Yeah, so you can split your economy. Yeah, economy is economy, you're right, but you have still different type of seats in the economy cabin, next to the galley, next to the exit row, a bit more space. And you have sometimes it's 2 seats instead of 3 extra. So customer apparently are sensitive to that.
Yeah.
And also you have where you sit in the aircraft, row 50 or row 25.
Yeah.
That will be the same seats, but for weird reason, you prefer to be row 25 and you are going to pay to be row 25. It will be exactly the same seats, but I don't know why. It's just it's just like this, human. Yeah.
It's a good question. I think it's a good plug for the seat characteristic that we just launched to be able, and I know TAP has some UPAs that are targeted to seat characteristics so that you can see the seat that you're going to be sitting in. Is it aisle, middle, window? Is it next, maybe the last of the row? Is it the bulkhead, etc.? So
yeah, and we can be extremely granular on that. Actually, we can differentiate the seat characteristic, the image or the text, whatever it is, by the aircraft, type of aircraft. We have 320, 321, 321 Neo, 321 LR. You have a lot of 321. You have 330. So you will have a different picture, different text depending on which aircraft it is and which airline operating. We talk about codeshare. In TAP, we have the regional brand. It's TAP Express doing Portugal, Spain, this kind of thing. It's Embraer. So there is less to say about this seat and an Embraer, but still,
only so much you can say about it.
There is still something to say, and an image, and it will be a different image, different context, different constellation. And for instance, on the Neo, you have a USB. On the non-Neo, you don't have a USB. That will be on the picture, it's very granular, helping to build accuracy, transparency, and at the end, trust, and hopefully revenue uplift. And as well, the second part, so customer focus, and the second part, differentiator versus competition. And we hope that it helps customer to shift from another airline to us.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
And the power outlet is really important because plugs are always different, and then you bring the wrong cord and then you have no power when you arrive. All right, Hugh, do you want to share a little bit about the customer need that led to adopting or adding UTA bag in the or baggage UTA in the Americas on your shopping platform?
No worries. So just to bit of context, so we consume 2 sorts of data from Happy. One is the amenity data. So if you center it, we'll show just what the facilities are on board. Not rich content yet, like imagery and such like, but we'll show the basic content, Wi-Fi, etc., and aircraft time. We're also now starting to consume baggage, and we'll gradually move into other features of the experience as well. What led to it was, I think I mentioned earlier on, is our most requested feature from travelers is, does this fare include a bag? So they want to know that to inform their choice of who they book with, be it the airline direct or an OTA. but also just and also just to do a, if does this include a bag? Do I book with TAP or Delta versus another airline? So most requested feature, which led to us bringing it in, simple as that. Yeah, live in a bunch of markets. We'll roll it out globally in time, and we'll add extra features to it. As we
Very
roll.
exciting. The UT, our benefit and restriction data are always very helpful to communicate those policies out to customers. Instead of reading, if you were in one of the last sessions, the blocks of text, I think everyone prefers the normalized bytes to help you learn more. Hugh, back over to you. Okay, 2 in a row. You can handle it. As one of the first customers to add the Route Happy amenities on mobile, can you share any customer engagement stories? Was it okay finding a spot for them? Did you have any feedback? Did you play around with placement?
Yeah.
Any stories to share?
So, well, we definitely saw an uplift in traveler engagement. We've certainly, as I've mentioned earlier, we've seen a significant uplift in redirect rate with adding the baggage information. We saw a lower one, but we still saw an engagement increase when we added amenity data. We've kept it on a small screen at the moment. Haven't included it onto our desktop site, largely because the majority of our traffic is in desktop, and that's where people are really searching. Once you go to mobile is where people are really searching. And once you get to desktop, you're just still searching, but you're much more further down the travel funnel. So definitely saw higher engagement. We got good NPS feedback from it. We've had it for a number of years now, actually, so it's not new for us.
Many years,
But it's almost one of those table stakes now. I think ultimately a lot of what you're talking about will become table stakes. Travelers will demand being able to visually see what the experience is like on board, as much as here's the different fare classes, and travellers will expect to have much more choice in fare classes, which is all the conversation about dynamic offers and modern retailing that we've been having the last few days. So moving to it's table stakes that we have that basic data, and more table stakes that you have baggage data and increasing levels of data for travellers.
We've been talking over the last, since we started having the Route Happy Days and the Focus Summits, I think 3 or 4 years, just on the sophistication of retailing, where we started from to where we are today to where we need to go. And I think we're seeing really good strides, right, with the visuals and the benefit and restriction data and our amenities, what you can get on board. We just added CO2 emissions, loyalty, and I think kind of this next wave are some of the things, if you were in any of the other sessions, around video, VR, 360, really immersing yourself in the experience, as some of the other industries have. So it's great. I think hopefully, I'm not saying you should remove anything, but amenities data, if it was gone, I think there would be a lot missing. So it's nice to see we've kind of moved to the line in the sand of this is great, we need it, and now what else can we do to further the adoption?
Absolutely. We could remove it and see what the results are. ATP go over there,
Don't please keep it. All right, Rigia, what flight shopping need led you to develop the grid layout that Spotnana is using today?
Oh, yeah. So as I said, at Spotnana, trust is paramount. So we want to build trust with users as well as airlines. So what do users want? They want content. So what we want to show is we want to show them all the content, all the cabins, all the fares on one screen. So economy, business, first class. We want to show them all with all the fare rules, all the information they need. For airlines, what do they want? They want to showcase their distinct products and offerings. So the grid layout actually helps us to attain both the goals, to help build trust with the airline, with the customer, and making sure that we have all the information they need. Going one step further, actually, we also want to enhance customer experience with the grid layout. So what we do is we have this feature of split payment, where what we do is, let's say your corporate policy only allows you to book economy. So we would actually show you that, hey, your policy allows you to book economy, but you can charge the difference of an upgraded class to your personal card. So you can actually book the same fare using 2 cards, your corporate card as well as your personal card, and then have a more upgraded yet compliant travel experience. I think the grid layout really works with all those things.
It's very nice to have the option if you want to, travel in a little more comfort. You're able to, instead of being in a middle seat, maybe in the back of a car. Fantastic. Derek, As one of the leaders for enhancing flight shopping with modern airline retailing attributes, known as MARA, or that's what some folks were trying to start, the acronym, on third-party channels, what are some of your wish list items that maybe would help with that?
That's a great question, Lisa. I think one of the things that we wanted to really try to incorporate as we move forward, I think I mentioned earlier around code share, and as we move more into this airline created offer space, where it's going to be different, it is how do we make sure that we are displaying the brand and the attributes of the actual flight that you're traveling on. Like you said, we all of our airlines, we've created these great brands, we've created these great products, but if you're not able to see those products within your channel, you're not getting the best for your value, you're not able to grow that premium revenue. So one of the challenges that we do have today is most of the brand information, the attributes are based on your marketing carrier. So if I'm selling that in my third-party channels, I'm going to show that, hey, you bought this particular seat, you got seats available, you can get an extra bag. But when I get to the airport, depending on the operating carrier that you're actually traveling with, they may tell you, okay, based on the fare that you actually bought, you don't get a pre-assigned seat. And it's because it's attributes that are going to be different versus the marketing versus the operating carrier. And so, even thinking about the brand name as well, we love our Delta One product, Delta One Suites. It has the lie back seat, just a little plug. But if I'm traveling on Air France or KLM, they have their own product as well that they want to have their brand name and their attributes out there. So a good thing that we need to work through, and it is part of MARA as well, is one, identifying what attributes are actually for the marketing versus the operating carrier, because it's not going to be the same. Their flexibility is going to be based on the fare, but my seats, my stuff that's in the cabin, the lounge access, that may be based on the operating carrier. So it's good that, we are able to create and call that out. And right now, there's not really a data source for that. There's not a unique data source for that, of where you can identify, I have this market, I have this operating, and especially when you get to those airline created offers, where do I need to pull that data from so I can make sure I have that right transparency to the customer? So if we can get to the point where I have this particular offer, I have this flight, I know it's a code share flight or interline flight, here's the brand name of the operating carrier, here is the flexibility of my marketing carrier, here's the seats, here's the aircraft and amenities of the operating. So it's truly giving that complete transparency for the customer's offer.
Absolutely. I think it's about setting expectations in the right way. Really, transparency in what we're trying to do is so that people aren't disappointed. And if we don't know, we should serve up the most restrictive or the most conservative, so that we can set the expectations accordingly. So I think that's a really important point. All right, Derek, back over to you.
Sure.
Has your distribution mix strategy over the past year shifted? And added any new communication needs? Is there a place for Route Happy to help communicate some of these shifts?
Well, I think for us is really, we have a big thing that we call our joint venture mix. And how can, when we're selling our joint venture products, how can we make sure that we're selling each other's product the right way? And Route Happy is really going to be a key part of that, because being able to do the same on our direct and indirect channels, Route Happy allows us to do that. For our JV partners in Delta, we have our own merchandising way that we do that, but sometimes that doesn't carry over correctly. Sometimes you don't get the right information that you need. So being able to really display that across the board is really going to be important. And also as we move towards what we call our corporate benefits, today it's really hard to display what a corporate actually is going to get in the market, because a lot of time the attributes is going to be based on your public fare. A lot of the corporates, they're going to be a private fare. They may get benefits that are just part of the contract, but they may not realize I can get a preferred seat, I can get an extra legroom seat. So for us, being able to actually put those benefits up front based on the actual corporate that's going to be used is going to be really critical for us.
It's really Justin. So funny having these note cards. 3 minutes. Wow, that's flew past. Okay, Justin, you offer UPAs to showcase the benefits of different fare brands, which I think is really important. You touched on it a little bit. So having UPAs, the visuals to showcase the different brands, have you gotten any feedback of how that helps to really sell the product and, avoiding some confusion?
Yeah, we do have feedback, first feedback. It's not a long time we are live with all of that, so it's probably a year or even less. But we start to have feedback. But to be honest, that's where we need to work more together as well to have a proper like A/B testing, business case, revenue uplift calculation, because it's still a bit not accurate enough. We have first feedback, it's working well. We can see some first results, but to have an overall view on what is the return on invest on everything, we still need to work a bit more and to start to do A/B testing with all the actors, so with a channel, with whoever. But that's something we would like, and we have started to a project on A/B testing actually. So so it really.
So maybe we use this for, maybe this is some foreshadowing. Maybe we can get Justin to come next year and present some of the more granular stats on A/B testing. What do you think? Who's interested?
Definitely.
We'll talk offline. I think that's probably it. I don't know if we've used the 3 minutes, but I want to thank our panelists for closing down the talks on Route Happy and merchandising. I thought it was really fun. Hopefully you agreed. Thanks.